Good afternoon, folks. I hope you can hear and see me well. Thanks for visiting my session. The time has gone 12 o'clock here in the UK. Welcome to everybody around the world that may be visiting this session today. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here. My name is Nigel Cliff from Value Exchange, and quite simply, I help people and companies become LinkedIn credible. What does that mean, you might be asking yourselves? Well, quite simply, as a result of using LinkedIn myself over a decade ago, quite successfully, I found I was able to do the same for others. And that, over a period of time, turned into a full-time business where I now consult and train other people to achieve success on LinkedIn. So what I want to share with you today are a number of tips that I've learned over the course of the last decade that help me attract my audience on LinkedIn, and that I've helped thousands of other people and companies do the same. So stick with me through this journey as we go through this together today, and hopefully take something from it. And of course, I'd love to connect and share anything afterwards with anybody who wants to take a conversation further, because isn't that what it's all about? It's all about conversations, because the starting point for, I guess, our LinkedIn experience is that we don't sell on LinkedIn. It's not a thing. It's not a place we should sell. No, absolutely not. We're here to build trust and credibility in our personal brands in order to get into that conversations down the line. So let me run through a couple of things as we progress over this next 30 minutes together. Listen, I'm a guy, I can't follow necessarily notes in the chat, so I'll try and keep an eye on there in case you have any questions. So do please ask those. I love to answer those. But if there are no questions, I'll tell you the best of what I can offer in these next 30 minutes. Now, I am sure that everybody watching the session today and that's been involved with the VMC over the last few days will have a LinkedIn profile. It's highly unusual for business professionals not to have a profile these days, isn't it? But when I ask the question of a room, we typically, I'm looking forward to get back into meeting people. I ask the question of a room of people, say, everybody's on LinkedIn, thank you very much. Are you proud of your LinkedIn profile? And staggeringly, between 80 and 90% of the people in the room sit down when asked that question. Isn't that interesting? And I asked them, did you not come here dressed appropriately today to this event? Did you not have a shower, comb your hair? Of course you did. Of course you got ready for the event. Well, guess what, folks? The place that many people start a journey of experiencing you will be, of course, through searching for your organization, looking at your website, finding out what you're all about. But increasingly, one of those customer journey touch points will be visit your LinkedIn profile. And if you are not proud of your profile, then questions must be asked, because that person may visit your profile and never continue with that journey based on what they see. How sad is that? How ridiculous is that? It's so important that we actually maximize our profile to be attractive to the customer audience we're trying to reach and we're trying to influence. So let me run through a few tips. Do you know, there are only two things to get right on LinkedIn to make it a success for you. Two things. It's quite simple, really. The first is to maximize your profile for people, obviously, and for algorithms. Come back to that in a moment. Maximize your profile for people and algorithms. The second, only two, is simply this: to engage on the platform. You could have the very, very best profile in the world, literally the best profile in the world. I don't know what that would look like, by the way, but let's assume there might be one. If you're not active on the profile, you're dead to the algorithms. You're dead to the audience. You're dead to the world on LinkedIn. LinkedIn engages your content and your activity by you being active on the platform. And if you're not active on the platform, you simply might as well almost not be there. You just, there's a reference point if somebody had to check you out. So the real success on LinkedIn is if you actually engage on the platform. So I'll come back to that in a moment. So what are a couple of things you can do on your profile? You know, I've got a method of I call it the Nigel Cliff score of viewing a profile. And many people whose profile I view score between 2 and 4 out of 10. Can you imagine that? 2 and 4 out of 10, the majority of people. Because I look for the deeper things that I know will be meaningful on their profiles to help them get into the conversation with the audience that they're trying to reach. And that is it. That's the purpose of the LinkedIn profile, to get you into that conversation. So what can you do to your profile to help maximize those opportunities? Well, let's work from the top. The first thing is your profile picture. Now, that's the first thing our eyes are drawn to, and it's pretty obvious, isn't it? Professionally, we all have a decent picture, don't we? do you know what? So many profile pictures don't cut it for me. And the critical thing, as far as I'm concerned, is to maximize the size of your face in the image area, okay? You want this bit of you in that picture area. Now, I know it seems uncomfortable. You know, my big fat face sat in the image area of that profile doesn't feel comfortable to me either. But the point is, I want to be recognized against my content. So when I'm engaging on the platform, I want to make sure that my profile picture is easily recognizable and that my face is in that image when I'm commenting, liking, engaging on the platform. When my profile appears to anybody, I want it to be immediately recognized that it's me against that brand. Really, really important. What else can we do on the profile at the top? Well, we've got a background image area that's significantly important. So many people have that grey dropout background that means nothing to the audience. So why not incorporate an image that helps tell the story you're wishing to tell with the audience? Now, I don't think it should necessarily be super branded. It's not there to sell a brand. The profile is there initially to build credibility and trust in you as an individual. But on that journey, how can we put some imagery there which helps people understand what we deliver, what we bring to the party, and perhaps we should incorporate some text in it, and possibly a little bit of branding is fine, but don't make it overtly too salesy, because do you know what, you're probably going to come selling at me if I connect with you, and that's not a good thing. And those are the things that we generally look at first in a profile. Now, those are obvious, aren't they? Ask yourself, have you maximized them? Now I'm going to go on to a couple of other things on the profile which are critically important. The headline text that appears underneath your name, and by the way, I think your name should be just your name. Don't add in your qualifications and email address, telephone number, just make it your name. I think it's easy to be found that way. But underneath there's a headline opportunity which consists of 220 characters. My question to you, have you maximized this with this in mind? When your prospect customer comes to your profile, is it clear from those 220 characters what you do and how you can help them? It's not about you. It's about the audience looking in at you, and that's the critical factor. So make it personable, make it nice, make it attractive, use sort of everyday language, but critically, get the keywords in that are critical to the offer and opportunities that you want to share with the audience you're trying to seek. So make sure you're maximizing the vocabulary in that headline section. It's really, really important, and it features highly on the algorithms too. What I'm also going to drop down to the profile is this. I'm going to tell you about the About section. I can't tell you how many About sections on LinkedIn are so disappointing. It's ridiculous. It's the one place on LinkedIn where you've got a free-form opportunity to express to people what you do and how you can help them in richer detail. So any keywords that you couldn't get into the headline section can now be richly delivered in the About section. And in this section, you've got 2,600 characters to tell that story. So don't be short on text. Don't think that brevity is good. You know, some people say to me, Nigel, get over yourself. People won't be reading all that. What are you doing? And they're probably right. 95% of people get into my profile, 99% of people get into my profile probably don't read it. I am not writing it for those 99%. I'm writing it for the 1% of people who are going to become my future clients. That's the point of it. I want my life's experience, my past, my present, and my future to be reflected in the information and the intelligence that they would like to see there. So I'm writing it to be attractive, to make it absolutely clear to the audience how I can help them in the future and what I can do for them. So that's the nature of it, and it shouldn't be brief. You know, go into some detail, make it about your business desires and what you'd like to have an outcome from relationships. Add a little bit about yourself in there too. LinkedIn is increasingly, as I'm sure you've become aware, a little bit more personal these days. And that's really valuable. I'll come back to that point in a few minutes. But it should perhaps have a little bit about you in there to sort of break it down. We've all heard the expression, people buy people first, have we not? That's just how it is in life. So before we get into the business conversation, we're going to be matching ourselves to an individual. And if we feel comfortable with that individual, we feel enough trust in that relationship, then we're going to continue that journey a little bit further. And that's what we're here for, is it not? So what else do we do in that About section? Well, a couple of really important things. Have a call to action at the foot of the About section. I'm interested. What do I do next? What do you want that person to do next? Is it to pick up the phone and call you? Is it to send you an email? Is it to make an inquiry through your website? Is it to go to a landing page? What is it? Tell that person what the next step of that engagement should be. That's the purpose of it. Don't leave them wanting more without actually expressing to them where to go and what to do next in order to pick up that conversation with you. Really important. And while we're on that point, make sure that your contact details are in this section or in the about section. Hugely super important, folks. If I'm first degree connected to somebody and I click on the contact details at the top of the profile, then I can get to see the contact details of that person, when we connected, their email address, their websites, except their LinkedIn URL, etc., telephone number. If I'm not connected to that person, there is no place to find the contact details of the person you're trying to connect with. And not everybody is LinkedIn confident. And this is a really important point. So what you're trying to do is make your profile attractive in order to want people to continue this conversation, do something about that relationship and continue the relationship, because no good will ever come of a relationship that's left on LinkedIn alone. There's no buy button on LinkedIn. It's not Amazon. We can't click here and put it in a basket. So we're going to have to pick up that relationship somewhere else, aren't we? It doesn't start and finish on LinkedIn. The good journey, customer journey of a relationship will be that we set the starting point of that journey here on LinkedIn by building trust and credibility in our personal brands in order to get that relationship off LinkedIn into a telephone conversation, into a Zoom call, into a hop-in, whatever it might be, whatever is your choice, whatever mode of communication you're looking for, make sure you offer that opportunity to somebody in the About section. Now, I could go on all day about the profile, and I know that a lot of us have got something more sophisticated to want to know about LinkedIn. So let me take you a little bit further. I've already said that we don't sell on LinkedIn, and yet we're here to develop business in the main. There's a contradiction there, isn't there? Well, if we can't sell, Nigel, what can we do? We're building trust and integrity in our personal brands to get into that conversation. You know, often I'm coming up with this word trust. For me, every keystroke I make on the LinkedIn platform is about building trust in my personal brand to get into that conversation. And, people sometimes reach out to me that I may be connected with, but I've no relationship with, or indeed second or third degree connections that say, Nigel, I've been following your content for 5 years, and I'm beginning to realize, 5 years? That's astonishing. They've been following me for 5 years. They've never reached out. They've never had a conversation. But what I've been doing over that time is building trust and credibility in my personal brand, so that when they're thinking there's something they might want to do with their LinkedIn profile and a strategy how to develop opportunities through LinkedIn, then they're going to think of me first. And this becomes a strategy not of outbound approach, but inbound. So if you do this consistently well, we're no longer pushing out and selling, trying to create opportunities that way. What we're doing is we're developing that credibility so that when people want what we've got, then they're going to come to us and ask for it. Isn't that a super position to be in? And when done well, that is the essence of success on LinkedIn. Being there, giving of knowledge, sharing in value, and just being ready when people want a piece of you. No amount of me picking up the phone and talking to businesses and say, hey, would you like some LinkedIn training? Let's see if I can find the right person, would ever do me any good whatsoever. In fact, I'd likely kill my authenticity and my brand values by even asking that question or making that call. So what I'm doing is I'm putting out my content in order to be engaging and interesting and valuable. Value exchange, see the words, valuable to the audience, so that when they look to improve their LinkedIn presence, then they may think of me first, and that's a wonderful position to be in. So if we can't sell, what's the way of getting our content across? Well, I've touched on it already, and it's sharing knowledge. That is one of the strongest features on LinkedIn you can possibly do. Share what you've learned on life's journey through posting on LinkedIn about those experiences, those lessons you've learned in life, the wins you've had, perhaps the failures you've had. Life isn't all about wins and successes. And sometimes exposing ourselves to things we've learned as a consequence of a mistake can be really interesting from the point of view of building that credibility with the help of that person. So really, really important that you share knowledge. And whilst on that topic, whilst that sounds business orientated, there's a little bit of you in there as well. It's definitely a thing over the period of the last decade, and I've seen a slow movement towards it, that being a little bit personal on LinkedIn certainly helps cement you with the audience you're trying to reach. If we're just very corporate about life, then that's not going to work. You know, if we're really everything just business, that's going to attract nobody. The algorithms don't see the attention, and your content dies. But bring yourself into that story and your personal experiences, and I call it life's journey, just sharing moments of life's journey. Then that can be really, really powerful. Now, what I'm not saying here is share with your audience, you know, what you had for Sunday lunch. That's Facebook-esque, okay? But I think we all understand the difference between having a little bit of ourselves in a business story as opposed to it being totally bland and non-interesting. And while I'm on the point of this, I can't sort of really deliver a session like this without just dropping into the conversation how relatively little value a company page content can be relative to creating your employees to be ambassadors of that brand. People develop relationships with people first. That's how this game starts. And therefore, because a company cannot engage in the same way as an individual, then if an organization is reliant on the company page delivering that message to its audience, it's going to really struggle, because there's only so many ways you can tell a story from a company corporate page without it becoming a little bit repetitive and a little bit boring, and without personality. So the way to turn this around is by making your client-facing staff, particularly people in business development, in marketing, of course, in HR. Really, there's nobody in the world of any company that can't be influential on building relationships with customers. Engineers, you know, they have the supportive impact of working with customers. They're not meant to be selling anything, and you know, the connections of those engineers really enjoy them sharing their knowledge, because you know they're not selling anything, not pitching anything. So it's interesting how people who are not actually in a selling role can have such a really valuable influence on people, you know, portraying the goodness of that brand. Is that a word? You know, the integrity of that brand by sharing what they know, share experiences of working with together as an organization to show the ethical values and purpose of the organization. The word purpose is coming into life much more now, isn't it? It's not all about profit. It's understanding purpose, understanding your why, and I connect that with purpose too. So make sure that all those things are very, very clear. Now, in terms of some of the questions that people often ask me about, well, what's the, you know, how many times should I post content, Nigel? You know, am I doing it 3 times a day? Oh, no. It's quality over quantity. I typically post, certainly in the last 3 months, a post a week. 1 post a week, and as a consequence of that 1 post generating conversations and engagement with the audience, I can pretty much guarantee 10,000 views of that post, interactions inside the reactions and comments on that post, which leads to conversations. And that's the point, isn't it? To take those opportunities offline into a conversation downstream. But if I wasn't posting at all, the conversation is never going to happen. So have confidence to post and share what you know, and then pick up the engagement that comes in the comments on that post to open up the channels of opportunity and communication with an audience. Those might be first-degree connections, people you already know. What happens is I find that people will develop what you might call a tribe, people who regularly support them, and many people potentially on this call watching this video on the recording that you know, thankfully and I'm so grateful for, regularly contribute and add value to my content as I do to theirs. So it's the engagement factor, it's that tribe factor that other people see and want to be a part of that actually develops your personal brand, getting those conversations. So posting once a week with something of quality over quantity works fine for me. What time of day, people might ask? Well, there's no one standard answer to that. I think what you have to do is just test and see what works for you. But one thing I would also recommend here is to post different types of content. Don't always make it a text-only post. Sometimes include an image, sometimes include a video, sometimes include a document. What I don't want my content to do is be repetitive, so that the audience looks at it and goes, oh, here's another churned out branded image of Nigel doing something, which gets boring to the audience. So I deliberately mix and match the style of what I do in order to be attractive, in order to be variable. So this morning I posted something unusually. I was at the Chelsea Flower Show yesterday, and today's a really busy day. I'm on many sessions, many training sessions, and I'm speaking at an event this afternoon in Leeds to a live audience. Can you imagine that? So I shared the fact that this is going to be a busy day, but yesterday I took a day off and I was at the Chelsea Flower Show and I shared some pictures. Now, at the moment, interestingly, that post isn't resonating with the audience, and sometimes we don't know why. But a post I did a few weeks ago got 10,000 views, and I didn't expect that number from the content that I posted. So one never knows what the audience is going to be attracted by, but if we're consistently posting content and value, getting our brand integrity across, then all will be well. That we will achieve what we need to achieve. Now, I also want to share something else about this engagement piece, which I think is really important, and the world seems to be waking up to this fact. I go onto LinkedIn with a purpose. I don't just randomly like content in my homepage feed, because guess what? If I just keep liking things, it'll probably get to the point where I'm liking a video of a cat. And all social media journeys in my world seem to end up watching silly videos of cats doing something. So what I make a point of doing is being very particular about the kind of things that I do on LinkedIn that resonate with the target audience I'm trying to attract. So in addition to connecting and reaching out to people who can add value to my life, or I can add value to theirs, then that is really important in growing that network, adding that value. I don't accept connections willy-nilly. I only accept them if they can be value to me, or I can be valuable to them. So it's not about a numbers game, it's about quality. So all the time I'm trying to add that value and that quality to the experience of what people perceive of me in order to get them in front of me. But also at the same time, I'm very conscious of my content that I'm consistently talking about the things which are in my world, which are of course around LinkedIn, around digital marketing, around relationship building, lead generation, and what I generically call digital disruption. You won't find me posting about a spaceship landing on Mars, for example, because that is not what my audience expects of me. Therefore, I have a strategy in order for me to understand what I want to post, and I begin to develop this relationship of an understanding from my audience, so that they know consistently I'm going to be posting and talking about a particular subject matter. And what that does, it helps your audience and the algorithms tighten up the experience that you will get from them visiting your homepage. They know what to expect. They know what to look out for. So I have a very tight strategy about how I engage and who and what I engage with. So with that in mind, when I'm actually engaging on LinkedIn, I engage with the people I want to see more of. Because if I don't engage with people on the LinkedIn platform, then there's a high likelihood that their content will not come into my feed. So what happens is that the algorithms understand what you're about, from your profile, from the keywords you put in your profile, from what you're sharing through your content and engagement, from what you're liking and commenting on yourself. And the algorithms kind of wake up to what it is that you're interested in learning more about. And therefore your homepage feed becomes much more valuable to you. I hear so many people telling me that their homepage feed is getting more like Facebook. And that tells me that those people either are engaging without strategy, liking random things all over the place with no intention of strategizing around that to make it very clear what they're about, or they're simply not engaging at all. And if you're not engaging at all, LinkedIn's algorithms simply don't know what you want, and therefore what's likely to get most attention? A silly video of a cat. It's just the way it is. So I do not like silly videos of cats or nonsense, unless occasionally they may be produced by somebody I have a relationship with, and that's fine. But generally speaking, I'm really tight about what I do. I know my target audience. I know the people I'm trying to attract, and I always have it in my mind, is this going to be valuable to that target audience? Because trust is built one step at a time. It just isn't built, by just by buying it. You can't do that. So actually what you do is you build trust in your personal brand over a period so that people at the point that they're ready may come back to you and say, hey, that was really interesting, Nigel. I've watched you for a long time. I really like that post you did last week. I understand now I'm not getting the best out of this. You might be able to help me. Or whatever your product or service is, make it very specific, be targeted, have a strategy. Have you written down what you want to achieve off LinkedIn? I run a 7-week course around this whole process of engaging and being attractive on LinkedIn. And you know what? The starting point is understanding that strategy, having a target and writing that down. And this stuff can be really measurable. It's absolutely measurable. We can watch our profile views. Are our profile views increasing in the last 90-day period, or are they diminishing? Are we getting improved visitor numbers to our website as a consequence of our LinkedIn activity? Because the journey doesn't stop here. The journey will continue to somewhere else. And I guess the point of this is, if you want it to continue to your website, to pick that journey up there, then obviously make that apparent in your About section in particular, but also measure the stats going on there too. Have you got enough followers and connections? I generally think that if you're over the figure of, say, 500 to 750 connections, then you've probably got a sense of volume that's already okay. It's not necessary to have 5,000 connections, 25,000 connections. In fact, LinkedIn has got a ceiling at 30,000 connections. So you can't do any more than that. So but I do think if you've got fewer than 500 connections, you probably need to grow your audience through more connections. But beyond that number, grow that audience, logically, and set yourself a target for growth. So you might want a year-on-year 10% growth in your number of connections. And working more acutely with the connections that matter and building relationships that are directed towards them is going to be better time spent than just adding ever more increasing numbers to your LinkedIn. It's not about boasting 20,000 connections. It's about engaging with the audience that's going to change your life by potentially giving you business and having a relationship with you. And for many business-to-business organizations that I meet and I train, do you know what? The numbers of individual new customers that a person or that a person needs is rarely more than a couple of hands. I ask people to imagine what a good customer looks like, and if you had, what number of those would you need in the course of the next year to make your business world really successful? And some people say, well, it would just need one big new client would change the world. Others say, well, 5 or 6 or 8. It's rarely more than 10. Some might say 1 a month, so it sometimes goes to 12. But actually, our worlds can be changed hugely by just connecting and building relationships with the right target audience, being highly valuable and directed towards that company that could make all the difference if you were doing business with to your life. So my focus is often about that targeting in order to actually build relationships with the right people. And a part of my training, I teach some Boolean logic on that training as well. So how do we find them? That's really important, because if we don't know who we're trying to attract and we can't find them, we're kind of, we're just hanging about in the middle of nowhere. So we need to have a strategy. We need to know what our target audience looks like, and we need to make sure that our profile and our engagement matches what they're looking for. Now, let me just finish on one point here. There is too much urgency on LinkedIn. What do I mean? You have to be patient. Trust is not built overnight. Depending on how long you've been on LinkedIn and depending on how much content you've been putting out there, you'll instinctively know where I'm coming from. Hitting the selling button to immediately follow up with a connection, to get into a conversation, let me sell you my stuff, let me show, is going to fail. It's going to put that person off. So what I suggest is be really patient about your LinkedIn strategy. So often when people improve their profiles and begin this engagement, they have early successes. They really do. And that's brilliant. When that happens within a couple of weeks of a start of a training program, that's fantastic. But generally speaking, I say to people, look, be consistent. Do this on a regular basis. Always be on LinkedIn commenting and engaging with content. I suggest that if you haven't got 20 minutes a day to be doing this on LinkedIn, it probably isn't going to be successful. So 20 minutes on a day on LinkedIn, engaging and adding new connections and just doing things that are helping you achieve your long-term goals is really important. But be patient about it. Any sense of rushing and you will probably put off the audience you're trying to reach. So I think my 30 minutes is coming to almost to an end. It's been a delight to share some thoughts with you. There's so much more to tell. And of course, if anybody's really interested in following the conversation, that's what it's all about here, isn't it? Listen, thank you, Robert, for inviting me to this session. It's a delight to share with you everything today. And I'm wishing the VMC every success as it goes forward today. And it's just been a pleasure to be amongst you all. And I look forward to meeting some of you the other side. So thanks very much indeed.